So I'm joined today with Richard Casey, who is the principal of a school in Limerick called Stella Maris School. And Richard, if you just want to give us a little bit background about how this school got started, its ethos, and where you see the school going in the next couple of decades, I think many Irish Catholics will be interested to hear about this.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Robert, for having me on the show and having the chance to speak to you today and speak to your listeners. So, Stella Maris School started 2.5 years ago. We're a private school or an independent school, which means that we have no government funding and we're separate from the government schools, or what they call recognized schools. So we're a non-recognized school, which means that we have the freedom to have our own educational provision, and we're not under the auspices of the Department of Education, which means that we can provide the education as we see fit for the children, which is obviously good news for the parents coming to the school because they want to have that freedom that certain things will be taught and taught well, and that certain things will not be taught in the school that they would deem to be harmful to the children, or that they would deem to be inappropriate to the children, as I'm sure you and your listeners would be well aware of those kind of things already. So probably no need to get into much specifics of that, but that would be a major reason as to why parents would be sending their children to schools. It's, I suppose, to promote what is good and provide children with a good education, good academic, human and spiritual education, and to avoid what is bad. So it's a simple enough kind of ethos, a simple enough aim and mission. In that sense, we could talk a little bit more about the specifics of that in a while, but that is the basic reason as to why the school started off, and why I became involved with it and wanted to set it up, why the other members of the board of management wanted to set it up, the parents became involved with the school, and why were getting a growing school community in the meantime. I suppose that's the driving factor. It's a promotion of what is good and avoidance of what is bad, and all moving towards Christ ultimately, and our ultimate purpose in life, which is to get us to heaven and to save us from hell. So regarding my own background, Robert, I was teaching for a decade in public schools before I set up the school. So I have good background in the education system in Ireland, a few months abroad as well, where I was doing a little bit of teaching, but it was by and large mostly the decade spent in Ireland in the school system. And so in that, like you know yourself, Robert, we live in mostly a fairly liberal and secular society. So you're going to be meeting people in those schools who might be largely influenced by secularism, by liberalism in their thoughts, in their the way they speak towards people, and in the way that they teach. And also because we do have a strong Catholic minority in the country as well, and it's important to recognise that and not to allow ourselves to be deceived to think that we're the only Catholics, a handful of Catholics in the country. There is still a strong minority in the country as well, whatever kind of percentage you want to put on that, which are out there and which you meet in the schools as well, students, parents, teachers, who are all very, very happy to be in Catholic schools and have the Catholic faith taught and taught well. So you have that mix going on there in the schools and the public education system when I was in there. And so, again, as I said, you have things that are a little bit more difficult, I suppose, when you're dealing with people in those situations. And then also you have the positives and people being very open to the Catholic faith and the messages happening in those schools as well, which is obviously very good. We need to keep that happening and keep that happening in the public schools, which are under the Catholic ethos in those schools going forward as well. But for my own situation, I felt, Robert, that if I could do anything at all to try and set up a school that was going to be really focused on Christ, that was going to be true to the teachings of the Catholic faith, that was going to not have, I suppose, any liberal or secular tendency or philosophy creeping into our school, into our teaching, into our textbooks, then I felt the only way for me to do that at the moment was to set up a private school. I suppose the government is taking more and more control of the schools, even though they are, obviously in the majority Catholic schools. Then the programs that they're bringing in, the things that are being initiated in the schools, the programs, the types of things being taught to the children, as well as, I suppose, as a follow-on from that, the kind of textbooks that are being put out there by publishers as well. They're becoming increasingly liberal and secular in nature. And so I thought that even when you're in a school and you're surrounded by some good people, that there's so many different forces which are difficult to try and navigate in a public school system, between between teachers, parents, community members, different books coming in, the curriculum being proposed or promoted by the government, that I felt that setting up a private school was the best way for me to try and provide the best possible Catholic education for children, for parents who wanted to receive that for children. So, as I said, there were some people that I knew in Limerick who were interested in providing good Catholic education as well, who were willing to come and set up the school with me, to set up the board of management with me, which is obviously vital in setting up a school and any organisation. We have to go through the usual legal formalities and setting up the school. Actually, the people down in Mater Dei, the Cantillon Murphys involved in Mater Dei, were actually a big help in giving us some of the structure, giving us some tips as to the kind of the structures that needs to be set up, the legal formalities, the registration with various bodies that had to take place in order to set the school up, was provided to us by Mater Dei as well. So they were a big help. We're very thankful to them. We're definitely, we're very happy that our school is set up and it's going well. But we're also delighted to see the likes of Mater Dei, Aquinas Academy down in Cork. I think there's another school set up in Donegal in the last year as well. Some talks of schools being set up over in the west of Ireland as well. So everywhere that it is happening, or people are hoping to have it happen, then it's good news for us, and it's good news for the people of Ireland in general. Please God, these schools will continue to prop up and to be promoted like this. So as I said, that's kind of my own background. That's why I felt this was the opportunity to see if I could start something up like this. And thankfully, then the people needed, as I said, the board of management, the parents, various community members who were helping out with the physical resources at school. Local organisations were interested in helping out, like the Legion of Mary here are providing the building for us for the school. So all these things started to come together, which made the school and the viability of the school a real possibility. And then, as I said, we started off just over 2.5 years ago, and thankfully since then we've been going from strength to strength. A very small school project. Certainly, that's absolutely true. Just 13 pupils at the moment. I started off with 8 2.5 years ago, so you can see small increases there year by year, but certainly a lot of positive signs in all those different factors, with parents and students and teachers and community members and people around the country being interested in the project. It's going from strength to strength in that way, certainly.
Yeah, that is amazing because I know a lot of friends of mine. I mean, they just turned to homeschooling around Ireland, especially some friends around the Athlone area, Roscommon area, because I mean the schooling system is very challenging at the moment. My 3 kids have gone through the Catholic secondary schools, and they come home to me and they tell me, because we catechize them at home, oh daddy, you should see what they've done with this. They've taken down the cross, they put up LGBT stuff in the school, and it's very, very, very disheartening. But we just chose the opposite, the option really, to try and catechize them, inform them ourselves. But it doesn't always work, and that culture really is can be very toxic for some students, and so and a lot of, from what I've seen around Ireland, a lot of Catholic families, they either band together or they do homeschooling. So your project is very timely, I think, and especially with Limerick as a location, because it's a very, very good catchment area that some families might be interested in.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. So I suppose um, we we're put in certain places at certain times by God, I suppose, to make the best of the talents and the resources that He's giving to us. So, as you said, obviously, I'm actually not in Limerick. I'm from North Kerry myself, but I suppose Limerick is the nearest city to me, and I'll be coming here to go to the traditional Latin Mass with my wife for some time in Sacred Heart Church, and we got married in Sacred Heart Church. We got to know the priest there quite well, and we got to know there's some Franciscan friars who are over in Moyross who we've gotten to know well. There's Father Bernardino, who comes and works with us from from the Franciscan friars, and then there's Dominican sisters. We got to know the Dominican
Yeah.
sisters over a number of years as well. I was involved with a group called the Association of Catholic Teachers. We used to go over to the Dominican sisters, and we'd do some of our meetings there. So we got to know them also. So there was a number of groups that I knew in Limerick, and then they were interested either at the beginning or after a little bit of time to get involved with the school. So I have, we have the Legion of Mary, and then I have the Institute of Christ the King, the Franciscan Friars, and the Dominican Sisters, all becoming involved with the school as well. So, as you said, Limerick is a good hub for us here to be able to liaise with all those different groups. And I suppose since we're an independent school, then it's great insofar as I suppose all the Catholic organizations can come and help out as best they can and get involved as
Yeah.
best they can, because we're not just associated with one order or another, and so therefore because we're independent, then they can all offer their assistance and help and support, and we can work with them as best we can in those different ways. So yeah, definitely. I suppose Limerick as well, obviously being one of the major cities in Ireland. Then I suppose after your Dublin and your Cork, I suppose then Limerick is going to have the biggest catchment area for us, not only from Limerick, but we also have people coming from Clare, we have people coming from Tipperary, you could have people coming from North Kerry or from maybe South Galway or Southeast Galway perhaps as well. So it's a good area for us to try and catch as many as possible, and the more the word spreads, I suppose, the more it's possible for families to find out about this and see if it's possible for their children to come to avail the education.
Yeah. I mean, indeed. I mean, and do you foresee having to look for a new location for the school, or will you continue with the premises of the Legion of Mary?
We'll be staying here for the moment, Robert. There has been a mention of a move in the future by somebody who might be able to locate a property for us. But at the moment, that's not something that we're too keen to do right at the moment. I suppose since we're only 2.5 years into the project, and we have a school building that could do us up to, could be 40 students or more, and we're only at 13
Mm.
at the moment. And we really do have plenty of room in the building at the moment. There's been an awful lot of resources put into the school by parents and by community members over the last 2 years, doing up the heating system, painting in the school, doing up our backyard, doing up a little shelter for the children, doing the floors in the school. So I suppose whilst we do, please God, look forward to having a good building in the future to move to, then because of the generosity of our benefactors and our parents and our community members, then we're quite happy with the school that we have at the moment. But it would be, I suppose, a long-term plan to move to a bigger and better building in the future certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's an exciting project, and I think it'll resonate with many families, because it's the most important thing that we do is try and educate our kids in some of the truths of our Catholic faith. For me, it was so disheartening to see what our kids are being taught in school, which so-called religious education, with the textbooks that they have. It's you're actually driving the faith out of them, and on paper we have the guts of 400,000 students in Irish secondary Catholic schools on this island. But if you organize any type of Catholic event for the under 18s, you would struggle to get 2,000, and that would be with a massive push from parents. People are just indifferent.
Yeah,
And then we're wondering, well, we have an epidemic of drug addiction, suicides, depressions, online abuse, etc., etc., etc. And really, the answer is a return to our roots, to our faith, in my opinion, because we've
yeah,
thrown out so much from our education system. And
yeah. Actually, sorry, Robert. Just on that point there, actually, my wife just finished up her PhD in the last 2 years, and she's an educational psychologist, and she was doing her PhD thesis on positive correlation between religiosity and mental health outcomes. So it's just interesting you're bringing that point up there, because I suppose when you do see these things happening, as you said, many different problems with mental health, or if you see social problems arising, or as you said,
Yeah.
various problems, yeah, arising, societal problems, and if you do go back to the root cause of it, then you do see a problem with a relationship with God being right at the heart and the center of it. So yes, her piece was very interesting in that she has I suppose various different psychological factors involved in that study, and relating those to secondary school students in Ireland and looking at the various results and how they correlated. An interesting thing actually in her thesis, Robert, was that there was no correlation between those who identified as Catholics and positive mental health outcomes. But the reason that she dug a little bit further into that, of course, the reason being is because one can identify as Catholic and it means nothing except a cultural Catholicism, insofar as they're not practicing the faith, they're not praying, they're not engaging with church community, and so therefore, if she based it off theism and non-theistic participants, and you were seeing a correlation there, and let's say things like purposefulness of life and some various factors like that, and so again, I suppose. All these things are very interesting. It shows that I suppose statistics in studies like these, they can be, if they're worded in certain ways or interpreted in certain ways, then they can lead you to the truth or not lead you to the truth either. Because we just looked at that and you looked at it and seen that the Catholic participants or maybe the Christian participants had no greater levels of mental health than the other ones, then it would mislead you, because really you have to actually find out whether those people identifying as Catholics are actually, if they believe in God, if they're practicing their faith or not. And so I suppose that was very interesting, her study, but also it shows again how data can be misleading at times, and one has to interpret it correctly in order to really get to the root of those things. And as well as that's, as you know, Robert, you're mentioning about at the heart of these things, we see a departure from God as being at the root of these problems in society. So, I mean, obviously, there's always going to be problems in society, and no society is ever going to be perfect. A perfect Catholic society isn't going to exist either, because we're all sinners and we all have faults and failings. And so there's going to be no utopia here on earth regarding these things. And you'll always have problems in the world as well, natural disasters, and you'll have, as I said, societal problems or mental health problems, which will occur naturally no matter what society you're in. But the point, obviously, that you're making and that I agree with and I'm making as well, is that these problems are exacerbated and become much, much worse when we depart from God, when we lose that proper relationship and orientation towards God and towards our fellow human beings. Then everything starts to unravel, and you just see more and more of these problems coming. I think it's Solzhenitsyn, who said that man has forgotten about God, and that's why these terrible things have happened. And so
Yeah.
you see that in Soviet Russia, but I mean, you see the same thing in the Western world today, whether it's going to be communism or liberalism or secularism. Once you're detaching yourself from God, then you just fly off into the orbit, like I suppose with Nietzsche and his illusion that we've cut ourselves off from God and we're just floating through the universe in a meaningless abyss. It just leads to people feeling lost and having these various personal issues and then societal issues as a result of it. So just have to, as you said, and as we're trying to do in this school, put Christ back at the center of things and order things around Christ. And that's the best way to try and order ourselves, our schools, and our societies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I presume your school offers the sacraments, or you have a church nearby that offers the sacraments on a regular basis.
Yes, so the children can choose, I suppose, the parish to go to for their sacraments. We don't, as I said, because we're not aligned with any specific, say, order or any
Yeah.
specific. Let's say, although we're in the parish under the parish here of St. Joseph's, because we're not aligned, let's say, per se, with any one religious organization or group, then they can choose the parish to go to. So there's a number of parishes nearby here. So a lot of them have made their sacraments in the last year or two in the local churches here. So that's something that I suppose was something that was interesting, because I suppose that most of the public schools are within the parish and they make their communions with the parish. Their preparation is done through that, but it's a little bit different here with our schools. They receive obviously a good catechesis, but nonetheless they still have to approach the parish and to
Yeah.
do things through the parish, as or through the, let's say, the religious group or church that they go to, and follow along the catechesis of that group also.
Yeah. Yeah. And you offer a classic, some classical education there as well. Latin, is that part of your curriculum?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So I suppose some of your listeners, Robert, will be I suppose, au fait with the classical curriculum and the differences between that and the public school system. So I suppose you could narrow it down just very briefly to three different things. I suppose the orientation in the classical education would be towards forming the children in wisdom and in virtue, love of the good and love of the true. So that's something that I suppose wouldn't be so much mentioned in the Irish curriculum, although they mention a lot about holistic development. And so, in a certain way, then one could interpret it as a love of the good and the true. It's not so much explicit. And certainly, even if that was the way in theory, it's certainly in practice, it's just not the way that things are lived out on a day-to-day level in most of the public schools in Ireland. So you have that central focus of developing the child in wisdom and in virtue. And obviously then with us having a Catholic ethos as well, we're not just a classical school, we're a Catholic school. And we see that fulfilled ultimately in following the person of Christ, because he is truth and goodness and beauty itself, and he is those things personified. And so we see it not just only as ideas and as an idealism, but as the following of a person. As well as that, then I think classical education you have the trivium and the quadrivium. So the trivium being grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and the quadrivium then being in the later stages in secondary school and into tertiary education. Now, logic and rhetoric are not so much taught in the primary school. I suppose we can just give the basics of those in the primary school, because you're obviously talking about some very young children in primary
Yeah.
school, and even getting up to the older age, the older ages in primary school, they're still very much at a basic level. So it's really a lot about forming them in the basics of grammar in primary school, and then you can have some bits of logic and rhetoric just in their elementary stages being introduced as well in certain topics and subjects and discussions. But that's really more for the secondary and tertiary education. And then finally, I suppose having good literature and great books would be an important part of classical education as well. So choosing our resources carefully and making sure that our library is well stocked with good material and avoiding any bad material or material that we feel would not be leading them towards the good, the true, and the beautiful as well. So that would be it. That would be kind of the general orientation of a classical school as opposed to a public school. And that would be the way that we offer the education here in Stella Maris School. Regarding the actual subjects itself, then it's by and large the same as you would get in the public system as 12, or there was, sorry, I'm working off the 1999 curriculum now. There was 12 subjects being offered in the public school system in 1999. There's obviously a change coming up in the curriculum for the primary schools. It's going to be a new curriculum being offered in 2026, where there'll be a difference in curricular areas and there'll be a change in the curriculum and the subjects being offered as well. I'm sure you're probably aware, Robert, about some of the changes that they have been mentioning. Religion would be no longer considered a subject in the new curriculum, so it would not be a curricular area. It could be included as flexible time, but I suppose it's in that sense, it's very much become a more strong, they're trying to create a more strongly secular curriculum in 2026 for the students going forward. And as I said, with religious education being taken out as a subject and as a curricular area, then I suppose it makes it something that's very much an option and an addition to what they're offering in their education. And when they say holistic education, then they're obviously believing that the holistic development of the person is something that can happen without religious education, which is a major statement for a government to make. And I suppose not much noise is being made about that, because I suppose the government and the media are generally fairly liberal and secular, and so therefore they won't be making too much of an outcry about these things. So it's really up to the bishops and to the other faiths as well, and to the lay people to make some noise about that, because if we believe that the Catholic faith is true, or if other Christians believe that their faith is true, or the Muslims believe that their faith is true, then we can't be happy about religious education being taken out as a subject, because it's saying that what we believe is only an optional add-on. It's not really true. It's not an objective. It's not an objective subject to be taught. The reason that I'm kind of able to talk a little bit more about this, Robert, is actually I'm back studying a PhD in Mary Immaculate College at the moment on John Henry Newman's philosophy of education and analysing the new curriculum, the 2026 curriculum in light of that. So I suppose I've been doing a bit of study on the new curriculum and the curriculum framework being proposed, and in reviewing that then in light of John Henry Newman's philosophy of education. So it's an interesting topic, and I suppose the more you can learn about that curriculum, even just to get a brief overview of it, it'll equip you to be able to speak more about it in a more profound way with people going forward. But then regarding our actual curriculum, as I said, in the school here, it's broadly the same regarding the subjects. We have 13 subjects. There was 12 in the 1999 curriculum. We don't have SPHE. We teach the basics of social education as part and parcel of our daily the day-to-day life and daily interactions with people, and then anything else, and that would be taught as part of our religion lessons also in a more informal way, but obviously in a way that's going to be very enriching and good for the development of the children in a natural way in the school. As
Yeah.
well as that, we have French and Latin then to add into the curriculum as well. So Latin, as you said, would be a classical education subject. I suppose it's important for the children academically, can give them a great basis in grammar, can help to develop their vocabulary in a huge way, which can give them many root words, which can be useful to them in studying the meanings of language in English, and also helping them to develop that vocabulary further as they get into more specific subjects, be it biology or chemistry or let's say physics or whatever it might be. The more that they have those Latin terms, the more useful they will be as they study those subjects, and those root words have been transferred into English and into those various subject areas. So something that's very, very useful to the children, and we're very, very pleased that we're able to offer it in Stella Maris School.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a beautiful project. I mean, I worked in a secondary school for 2.5 years, and I still keep in touch with many of the students now that are parents, really. This was over, uh, God, it's revealing my age. It's now 28 years ago, more or less. And education is such an important aspect. You don't see the fruits. It can be a bit disheartening working with students because the fruits you will see in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and then they come back and say, "Oh, thank you for we know you were tough and we know it's different, but we appreciate the work you did and the efforts you did."
Yeah,
And the way we had Catholic education at the time is we always had prayer in the school, prayer at the beginning of the day. There was a chapel in the school. There was usually mass every month. And the Catholic ethos was front and center. It was a Catholic school, a private Catholic school. And it stood to them, obviously, because the Catholic education does form you in a very, very different way than a very secular education, which has no ultimate meaning for the purpose of life. It's this world is it. Well, there's more. You're kind of cutting off a dimension of a reality by removing the supernatural dimension, and that's what we've done in our Catholic schools in Ireland. It is a real tragedy. We have absolutely destroyed the supernatural dimension in our Catholic schools. And not to mention, I honestly think, personally speaking, if in some of the non-denominational schools you have a more supernatural dimension because they give freedom to they give some freedom for religious formation, whereas in our Catholic schools, the supernatural dimension has been destroyed. It is, and that's not me saying this. This is a reflection in reality. We don't speak with conviction of the truths of our Catholic faith in the Catholic schools, and when we see projects like yourselves coming, it's beautiful because we had a school, St. Patrick's Academy, not too far from me here in Mayo, founded by Father Wilders. And it's a very hard project to keep going. So hopefully this video will put people in contact with yourself and with the school, with the project, so that we can give our kids the best opportunities possible, for the future.
great. Yeah, thanks very much, Robert. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Obviously, as I said, we're a private school, and so we don't get any government funding. So that's obviously a big problem to be dealt with on an ongoing basis because, as I said, we have 13 students in the school, and so therefore there's not that many families, maybe 8, 9 families is what we have with the school, and they're making their contributions, and there's no set fee for the school leader. So that's to ensure that the parents can join the
Yeah.
school, even if they might be in a situation that might be financially difficult for them to do so. So I suppose that keeps it open for anyone to be able to join the school and to contribute what they can and to help out with fundraising, whatever ways they can. But really, we're hugely dependent on benefactors then, Robert, because if we didn't have benefactors helping out with this project, we'd just be relying on parents' contributions, and that really wouldn't, unfortunately, add up to an awful lot. It wouldn't be enough to keep the school going with its various expenses on a
Mm.
daily and monthly basis. So therefore, by the grace of God and by the help of Our Lady, we've been able to run the school with the contributions to parents, with some fundraising, and with help from benefactors. So certainly, if there's anyone interested in helping out with Stella Maris School, then we'd greatly appreciate them getting involved with us or touching base with us. Our website is www.stellamarisprimaryschool.com, and our email is info@stellamarisprimaryschool.com. So if it is something that you're interested in or interested in supporting in any small or big way, then we'd be delighted with your help. And if not dearly, then we certainly wouldn't be able to do anything if it wasn't for the spiritual help you're receiving from people praying for the school. It's obviously a very difficult project to set up and to keep successful. So if people weren't praying for us all the time, then I'm certain that the project wouldn't be succeeding, because there certainly is an awful lot of grace is being poured down upon the school in order to make it possible in the first place, and in order for it to continue running. So please do keep us in your prayers as well. And we know that God and Our Lady certainly are listening to those prayers and are bestowing us with the graces necessary for our school to run.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any special fundraiser or fundraising event in the year that people can touch base with you on, or will just, or is everything on your website?
I suppose there's one major fundraiser on the website which they can go on to, and they'll find. So there's a PayPal link and there's a GoFundMe link on the website which people can find, and they can find us
Yeah.
and donate to us through that. Apart from that, then we'd have maybe three fundraisers during the year, smaller fundraisers. We might have one for Christmas, maybe for St. Patrick's Day, and again a back to school fundraiser. So there'd be smaller fundraisers to help us to keep on getting those expenses covered as best we can all the time. But as I said, if there's just a general way that people are looking to get involved and to help with, then there's the PayPal and the GoFundMe just on the website, just on the right hand side. You'll see the red buttons to donate in those ways.
Perfect. Okay. Well, Richard, it was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully this interview reaches the right people that will help you support with this project. And I presume at some stage, maybe even a secondary school, if that's possible. You never know where
Yeah,
this goes. Yeah.
that's I suppose that would be the hope. So if you have a successful primary school, I suppose that the parents would be looking to try and set up a secondary school. So that would certainly be a hope for the future, that uh,
Yeah.
so long as it keeps on running well and you have students coming out of the school, then naturally you'd imagine that the parents will try and seek that out as well also.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks very much for your time, and I'll put a link to your website below so people can click on it and learn more. And hopefully, those around Limerick will make contact and explore the options.
Great. Thanks a million, Robert. I really appreciate it. Thanks. God bless your
It's
good
a
work.
pleasure. Thank you. God bless.
Thanks. God bless. Bye bye.
Bye bye.